Okay, in the last demonstration, I showed you how to do a while loop. Well, for loops are very similar. So I'm going to take basically the same stuff that I have in this file, and we're just going to modify it a little bit. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and then I'm going to save it. I have it in a loops folder, and I'm going to save mine, and we're going to call it loop-4. And save. And so now I've actually got it set up as a different type of file or a different file name. So I want to also go up here, and in the title I'm going to change it to loop-4. All right, now you're going to notice that we still have our while loop in here. We're just going to use this for reference right now. And in fact, I'm actually going to open this up to be wider so that you can see everything better. And I'm going to come down here below, and we're going to create a new section for the for loop. Oops, it's PHP. And we'll end that. And then I'm going to just make a little comment that says for loop. Okay. And before I even try to convert anything over from the while logic, I'm going to just put the basic syntax for loop. So for loop would be something like this, where inside of the parentheses, we have three things. We have three different placeholders. We have the counter, okay, or I should say set counter. I'll just type it like that. So we have set counter, and then we put a semicolon. All right, you have to have that semicolon. Then the second position is going to be the condition to be tested. So I'll say condition tested, semicolon, and then in the last position, what we're going to have is the iteration. So I'll just put iterate. And we don't have a semicolon after this last one. All right, so we have three things. We have set counter is the first thing that happens inside the parentheses. Condition is going to be set here so that we know what the condition is to be tested. And then finally at the very end, we're going to iterate. Now, and then just like the while loop, whatever goes inside the curly brackets is what we actually do. Now, if you want to sort of be able to think about this and swap stuff out, we can say, okay, well, the condition that we're testing is A greater than, or excuse me, is B greater than A. Well, the first thing that you'll notice is that set counter is the first thing that we're supposed to do. Condition is the second that we're supposed to do. So where did we set the counter? Well, remember, in a while loop, you don't actually set the counter inside the loop or as part of the loop. You actually have to set the counter outside of the loop. And so that's one of the big differences between while and for, is that you set the counter as part of the for statement. So I'm going to copy this where it says A equals 0. I'm going to come down here, and in my first position inside of my for statement parentheses, I'm going to set the counter. So A equals 0. All right. And then it has a semicolon. The next thing that we said is that we need to find the condition that's being tested. Well, our condition is B greater than A. So I'm going to copy that. I'll come down here and I'll paste that where it says condition to be tested. And then I have my semicolon that ends it. And then last time, at the last position, it says iterate. Okay, so the last argument is going to be what we do to iterate. And iterate is going to be A++ from if you look up in our other one. And remember, with while, we had to actually iterate inside the loop, inside the curly braces. Well, with the for statement, it's being passed in as an argument or a parameter. So the first argument that gets passed in is, or the first operation, is going to be that we set the counter. The second operation is we're giving it the condition that's being tested. The third is going to be how are we going to iterate this thing. Okay, so then everything that goes inside is essentially the same stuff that went inside the while loop, with the exception of this counter being iterated down here. Okay, so let's just copy some of that. First of all, let's go ahead and copy this remainder thing where we're setting the remainder variable and trying to figure out what the class is. So we'll copy that And let's go ahead and paste that inside. All right, that's the first part. Okay. Now, the second part is where we actually go and echo the list item, right? So if we wanted to be consistent with what we did up here, we could just copy this whole list item as it is, okay? And then, but you remember we had to like end the PHP and then start the PHP back up. So we could do that. We'll say end the PHP, and then let's just be really simple about it. Say start the PHP back up here. And then right in between, that's where we could paste that list item class equals, and then we echo the class, and all right. This is doing exactly what that while loop did before, so that you can start to understand how the two are the same or similar. I shouldn't say same, but they're similar. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and save that, and let's test it. I'm going to close this. And if you want to be sure that you know it's being tested over here, because it's going to look identical, is that we can go to the very top and we can change the background color of odd instead of CCC. Let's have it be yellow. It's going to be awful, but whatever. Okay, so let's save that and go over here. And don't forget, you have to actually change which file you're looking at. So right now we were looking at the loop while file. I need to change it to the loop for file. And you see it's all in yellow. Oh, and you go and look over here and you say, oh, wait a second. What's all this nonsense though, right? Why is this happening? Well, if you remember, one of the things that we did up here is that we had a proper list by putting these UL tags. We forgot to put the UL tags down at the bottom, or at least I did. So if I were to copy the UL tag or just retype it, I need to put it before my for loop, and then also I need to end it after my for loop. So if I save that, then come over here and refresh, our bumblebees will look the same. Okay. Now, and if you wanted to be really specific about what you're doing, you could label one of them for and one of them while or whatever. I'm actually going to get rid of my while loop since this is actually the for loop page. And that way it won't be as confusing, but if some point, you need to refer to this, I strongly recommend that you take a peek at it and compare the two if you have any confusion whatsoever, so that you really understand the similarities. Now, the other thing too I was going to show you really quickly is that this is really more complicated than it needs to be. We can make this simpler. I alluded to that in the last demonstration. I told you we could either do this as an if statement, like if else, or we could do it as a ternary operation. So let's actually see how we could write that. I'm going to put the ternary statement here, and then down here we'll call this if else version. And so I'm going to use the space right up here for the ternary so that I can kind of look down below at what's happening and try to figure out the logic. Well, what is it that we're doing? We're actually setting a class. That's the whole goal. Well, if you remember back to a previous demonstration, I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to paste something. This is the way that you can look at the ternary statement. So what you're doing with the ternary statement is, first of all, you're setting a new variable. That's the point. You're trying to actually determine if something is true or false, and then based on whether it's true or false, you're going to assign certain values to that variable. All right, so the first position is the variable that you're making, and it's going to equal, and then this is where the condition that's being tested goes, and this little question mark is it's sort of like having the first set of curly braces, right, where the question mark is saying, okay, well, here's what comes if it's true versus if it's false. And just like here in the if statement, you would say if, and then here's the condition to be tested. If it ends up being true, then the first value that you're going to assign is going to be the true value, even. Well, that's the case here. All right, this would be even. And then otherwise, and that's what this little colon is like, right? The false value. And this would be like the false value. So let's fill this in. The thing that we're actually trying to determine down here is, or trying to set, I should say, is this class variable. So I want to copy that, and we'll actually, oops, didn't mean to do that, sorry. Let's try that again. Paste it there. Class is the variable that we're trying to set. Okay, and then the condition that's going to be tested is this question, is remainder equal to 0? So I'm going to copy that. We'll put it in the spot here where it says condition to be tested. All right, and then this is the first part of the ternary with the question mark. All right, and it's looking to see if it's true, right? Then assign this true value. Otherwise, that's what this little colon is. Otherwise, this is assign the false value. Okay, so even is the true value, right? And we have to put that in string format, okay, because it is a string. And the false value we decided was odd. Okay, so that's how you could take all of this stuff right here and stick it into this one line succinct ternary statement. So I'm actually just going to comment this out right now, and while we're testing it, I'm going to comment that out. So if I save this, I come back over here, I'm going to refresh the page, and then you see now I've only got one set of counting 0 through 29, and you see that it's actually working. This is still working. It's giving me my evens and odds. And so if I wanted to, I could go here and I could get rid of that if statement so that I've got something that's a lot cleaner, a lot shorter, and more succinct. Okay?